The vampire genre is rooted in tension between life and death, humanity and monstrosity, desire and danger. Many stories feature a transformation, a human crossing the line into vampirism, and often losing something vital to their humanity in the process. Visually, vampire films are drenched in contrast. Light and shadow, red and black, pale skin, elongated fangs, and lavish costumes define the vampire's otherworldly appearance. The soundscapes are often eerie and orchestral, enhancing tension or tragedy depending on the era. Themes like immortality, forbidden love, addiction, and isolation dominate the genre. These films ask, what would you do to live forever? And what does it mean when humanity slips away? Directed by Todd Browning and starring Bela Lugosi, Dracula 1931 set the cinematic template. Dracula arrives in England, seduces his victims, and is ultimately hunted by a band of humans. It's a straightforward monster story, man versus supernatural evil. This early vampire fits the classic mold, seductive but not sympathetic. Dracula is a predator. He stalks, he kills, he's defeated. There's no backstory, no remorse, only a presence meant to terrify. The visual style reinforces this fear. Shot in stark black and white, the film leans heavily into shadow and silhouette with a gothic aesthetic seeped in fog, candlelight, and creepy staircases. The minimal score leaves silence hanging like a threat. Werner Herzog's 1979 Nosferatu reimagines the vampire through a lens of melancholy. Count Orlok spreads plague and death, but he's also tormented, desperate for love, and incapable of connection. The plot follows Jonathan and Lucy Harker as they try to stop Orlok. But this time, the vampire isn't simply a villain. The story presents him as a figure to be pitied as much as feared, a symbol of isolation and obsession. The visual tone is mournful. The film uses gray skies, decaying architecture, and long static shots to build existential dread. Orlok's design, rat-like, pale, hunched over, strips away the aristocratic elegance of Dracula, replacing it with physical and emotional decay. I don't think that I could talk about vampire movies without talking about, arguably, the most influential vampire movie of all time. In 2008, Twilight introduced a new kind of vampire, glittering, gentle, and deeply conflicted. Edward Cullen resists his desire for human blood and also resists his desire for Bella, forging a love story where the real danger is emotional intimacy. The plot is centered not on killing the vampire, but choosing him. The conflict arises from restraint, protection, and belonging, not horror. Edward's greatest fear isn't death, it's hurting the one he loves. Twilight trades gothic horror for romantic melodrama. The visual style is cool and ethereal. A blue filter covers nearly every frame. The vampires are graceful, dressed in modern clothes, moving through forests and high schools. The soundtrack features indie rock, emphasizing mood over menace. In just under a century, the vampire has transformed from a predator to a partner. In Dracula, the vampire is terrifying and untouchable. The camera keeps its distance. Dracula is framed like a threat, isolated by darkness. In Nosferatu, Orlok is framed similarly, but the tone shifts. The camera lingers on his sadness. He's not just dangerous, he's cursed. By Twilight, the framing becomes intimate. We're pulled into Edward's world, shown his emotional turmoil. The vampire has become the protagonist, not the antagonist. In Dracula, the vampire is an outsider to be destroyed. In Nosferatu, he's a tragic figure who must be stopped. In Twilight, he's someone to be loved, someone who is worth saving. Even the act of biting, once the genre's most horrific moment, becomes symbolic. In Dracula, it's an attack. In Nosferatu, it's a doom-ridden seduction. But in Twilight, it's withheld, an act of restraint. The horror has become internal. The evolution of the vampire is mirrored by the women in their stories. In Dracula, Mina is a damsel. She is hypnotized, controlled, and rescued. Her purity is her defining trait, and her weakness. Lucy in Nosferatu is different. She chooses to sacrifice herself to save others. She's still doomed, but she owns her fate. The film gives her tragic agency. She's not just a victim, but she's a key to the victory. And then there's Bella. She's not running, she's choosing. Bella actively seeks out the vampire's world. She's not content to be protected. She wants to be transformed. These women reflect the genre's journey from passive observers to moral anchors to equal partners. They evolve alongside the vampire, challenging gender roles, agency, and the nature of desire. Over the last 100 years, the vampire has changed, not by losing its bite, but by gaining depth. From monstrous invaders to romantic outsiders, these creatures of the night have become mirrors for our fears, our longing, and our evolving humanity.